Three, two, one, and we are live. Hey, friends. I hesitate to say, hey, this is Crypto Ernie. I don't know why. But that's my new name. That's the new name of this channel, Crypto Ernie. And today, we're going to talk about the current state from a trader's point of view of Bitcoin, where it's likely to go, what's the best way to take advantage of what's currently happening. And the first thing I wanted to point out is that we don't trade here at Crypto Ernie or at PatternCast these big patterns. However, they are telling and they do provide some insight as to, um, or at least some, I don't know, I guess insight's the best word, why PatternCast makes the choices it does sometimes. So you can look at these chart patterns, you can look at volume profile, and it all starts to make sense. Now, PatternCast doesn't know anything about chart patterns. It doesn't know anything about volume profile. It doesn't know anything about candlesticks. It knows none of that. It just knows lots and lots and lots of data and patterns that it sees in the data. That's all it knows. It doesn't understand what these patterns mean. It doesn't care. It just sees relevant patterns or patterns that repeat themselves. It has no understanding whatsoever about what these patterns are. And when we look at the patterns, we don't have any idea of what they actually mean because they are not recognizable as the traditional patterns that we would see, like what you're seeing right here in this symmetrical triangle on a daily chart of Bitcoin that appears to be forming. Now, what we do know from symmetrical triangles is that there has been quite a bit of work done from a statistical point of view. Most people don't have any compunction to even look at this work. They don't know it exists. They wouldn't know what it meant. They don't care. They just take the word of some kind of pundit out there that, oh, symmetrical triangle, it's going to go up or it's going to go down. It's going to break out. They don't know what percentage, how often it breaks up, how often it breaks down, what is the average break up, breakdown, where does it rank. They know none of that stuff because they don't take the time to look into it. They don't know how to measure it. They don't know how to. They don't know squat is what it comes down to. So I'm going to provide, the bigger context about this big pattern that's forming, and that there is a 60% chance that it will break up, a 40% chance that it will break down. But one thing is for sure, it will break. We just don't know, up or down. There is, on a break up, only about a very, very small percentage of the time, I'm going to say that maybe 10% of the time, it will fulfill the potential of the pattern. The potential of the pattern is actually at the base of the triangle. And right now that appears to be about 5,000 points. So in other words, the potential of the pattern once it breaks is to move either up or down 5,000 points. It is also far less prevalent, only 10% of the time, that it will realize that full potential. The breakdown will realize its full potential about 40% of the time. The rest of the time, something less than the full potential. So there is nothing saying that it's going to reach its full potential. There's probably only about a 25% chance that it will reach its full potential. As we move further and further to the apex, the likelihood that it's going to break increases. One of the telltale signals that this pattern is actually forming is also found in the volume. And if you look at the volume of this particular pattern, it is falling off. Now, while volume falling off is not an absolute determinant that the pattern is about to happen, it does happen about almost 90% of the time, about 86% of the time, volume decreases in the formation of that pattern. So that's pretty significant. We would look at that and we would say, wow, that is kind of like confirmation for me. 86% of the time, damn. Well, it might interest you to know that PatternCast, those signals, they produce profit more than 86% of the time. Now I'm talking about PatternCast in general. We have a short history with Bitcoin PatternCast, only about a week and a half. But with the bigger PatternCast, we have a couple of years worth of data, and actually in public operation, about a year's worth of data. And yes, about 86% of the time, 90% of the time actually, within a 4-day period after a PatternCast signal is put out there, it will prove to be profitable. Now, how much profitable? That depends. All right, so there's a lot of mitigating circumstances here. But let's just say that 65% of the time, not only is it profitable and reaches the target that we specify, but it'll reach, on average, almost 200% of the target that we specify. About 70% of the time, it will reach about 70% of the target. 96% of the time, it will reach a positive amount of the target. That's pretty cool. So the other interesting thing is that PatternCast is really great at picking off huge outliers. So if a move is going to be a big move, there are some moves that are just, that it just seems uncanny. We just had a couple of great moves in the traditional markets PatternCast with gold and the Aussie dollar that were just spectacular. Bitcoin over the past few days has been giving us basically no signal. And if you look at over the past, since our service has existed for the Bitcoin PatternCast, there really hasn't been a lot of movement. However, even without this lack of movement, we have produced, on average, 500-point moves and about a 5 out of 6 win ratio in the past week and a half. So that bodes really well. Now, in previous videos, I talked about how we actually get the data of PatternCast, very similar to the way they would do in the CME group in creating their futures product, or the Gemini project in producing their aggregated feed. We do something very similar because any one exchange is really unreliable. So we actually aggregate many exchanges to actually analyze the data. All right. So the other thing about this particular symmetrical triangle is that we have this huge volume node that is forming, and it's a little bit, how should I say? It's not really fully consolidated, right? We could probably pull in some more data and see how that might look in a bigger picture. We might even have to go to a weekly to see this. Let's go to a weekly. So we can see that this is not a really well-defined volume node here. Maybe we can... and we don't have a lot of historical data to back up this particular symmetrical triangle, because we'd have to go all the way back to the the first bubble that we, or not the first, but the 2017-2018 bubble. And there was relatively a small amount of volume there to contribute to this node here. There's far more volume just below it at the $7,000 or $8,000, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if we were to break down that we would move to the 8,000 area. If we break up, as I said, breaking up is the more likely scenario about 60% of the time. However, it comprises of only about 10% of the time actually reaching its potential. So in other words, if it broke up, there's only about a 10% chance that we would hit up around 15,000. If we broke down, there is a much larger chance, and just by volume profile alone, we can see that this makes a lot more sense because we have these huge volume nodes, one at 8,200 and another one at 6,500. 6,500 would be more in line with reaching its potential. So there's a 40% chance that we break down, but if it does break down, there is a much greater chance that we will move and reach the full potential, more likely going to 8,000 and possibly even 6,500 or 6,400 as the eventual target. So those are the odds. Those are the odds that we have, and those are the odds that over literally millions of chart patterns, hundreds, maybe 10,000 different symmetrical triangles that have formed in traditional markets as well as crypto markets. Now, we don't know which way it's going to go. And making these long-term choices is difficult. So from a long-term perspective, this is a much more difficult thing to trade. If it started to break down out of this triangle, I would maybe have some long-term capital and put that into that trade and let it go down. But from a shorter-term perspective, you want to be able to initiate or get that move, I mean, every 500-point move is significant. And the best way to do that is definitely with PatternCast. PatternCast will give us the odds of anything happening within a 4 to 5 day period with an incredible edge. And so that's what we do. And if you're interested in that, join PatternCast before I finish up my vacation here on Martha's Vineyard. Get down there. Get it at this price because the price is definitely going up. You can pay with either worthless fiat or with crypto. All right, so I just wanted to bring all the odds and all the everything that you needed to know about a symmetrical triangle and what's happening at this particular point. I'm putting my trust in PatternCast. On the bigger move, I'm thinking that we're more likely to go down. If you go to the pundits out there and in the YouTube cryptosphere, I would say that 90% of them are looking for the price to go up. Everyone's talking about 100,000, 500,000, $10 million Bitcoin. They're just living in a friggin' dream world. Stick with me and you'll get the straight facts, the real statistics, and a more sane way to approach this market. All right, that's all I've got for today. I want to thank everybody for showing up. And again, believe in the statistics. Don't believe in the hype. Playing the statistics is your best bet. It's really the only edge. No one really knows which way Bitcoin price is going to go. Nobody knows. And all this hype trying to push it up, what has it done for you over the past 2 years? Nothing. Except perhaps lose a good chunk of your money. Play the statistics using PatternCast, in my view, because that's all it is. It's a pattern recognition statistical behemoth, and you'll be much better off. All right, that's all I've got. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Take care.